Over the past 10 years, I have poured myself, heart and soul, into learning the art of gardening and preserving food. My husband and I run an organic farm, and we've been doing this for the past 8 years. And previous to that, I worked on another farm for 2 years, which is where I learned how to can and process food. Previous to that, my husband and I were foragers, and we went out into the wild and learned how to observe nature and plants and learned the art of wild harvesting and taking that home and making teas and salves and different things like that. So I have a lot of experience with plants, and it is one of my biggest passions in life. This is my first year where I decided not to grow a garden. What you're seeing right now is our farm. And so I still have access to a lot of food that I could be preserving. But this year I've decided to take a break, a much needed break, because every single year led to burnout, especially with working full time in the summer months. And I am very much enjoying it, and it's allowing me time to reassess everything and put my energy into other things. This morning, I'm out on the farm collecting some produce for a farm to table breakfast this weekend, and I love doing this. And what I'm finding is that by not putting my energy into the preserving, I instead am putting my energy into collecting and cooking the food that we are growing. And this is a really big switch for me because usually it's all about preserving the harvest. Preserving foods that you grow is a lifestyle. This is something that homesteaders know very well. The winter months are spent looking over seed catalogs and planning out what you're going to grow. And then you're looking through your favorite recipes for canning and deciding what you want to do. And there's a lot of planning before you ever put a seed in the ground. And then from there, once you start growing your seedlings and planting your garden, the race is on to weed it and keep it looking nice until things start to produce food. And then once that happens, you are working from then on into the fall and even winter months, preserving that harvest. And if you work a job, you only have the evenings and weekends available to do this. And so it can get very tiring. And if you don't keep up the preservation of the food, what is going to happen is that you are going to have to compost that food and waste it or give it away. And so you really need to dedicate yourself for the entire season. And so this really turns into a lifestyle that just keeps going year after year. And once you know how to do it, it is addicting. And I absolutely love this lifestyle. I wouldn't trade it for anything. At the beginning of this year, I just had this feeling that I should not plant a garden. And to be honest, I've kind of been leaning in this direction for the past couple of years where I just am so tired and it's just, less and less exciting, to be honest with you. And I think that's when you know that you need to give yourself a break. And for me, it was like a soul knowing. It was like my soul was telling me to put on the brakes. I was feeling major resistance. And because I love this so much, it was so hard because I kept thinking, well, what if I did this? Or what if I did that? At the end of it, I know I made the right choice because there has been a lot of things that I needed to put my attention to this year that I would not have been able to had I been growing that garden and processing that food. Just for context, I am cooking up this bacon. I added a little bit of brown sugar and some black pepper and salt, and I'm going to bake that in the oven while I steam the green beans. And I'm going to cream the Swiss chard. I have a recipe for that in another video, but I'll put it again down below just in case you're curious. And then I'm also going to be making scrambled eggs. So instead of the toast that I would typically make, I'm doing veggies on the side. One of the things that's happening currently at the moment is that my dad is in the hospital. He went in for open heart surgery last fall, and now this year he's having some more health complications. And so he's in the hospital, and we're all worried about him. And so I feel like if I had that garden going and I was worried about processing that food, I wouldn't be able to put as much attention into other family matters like this. And so I'm so grateful that I didn't put that garden in. But aside from that, I've really been able to have some personal growth for myself. I've been able to help my husband, and we've been doing adventurous things on the weekends. And I've just felt like a teenager again. It's like I have all of this freedom that I didn't have when I was planting that garden. And it just took up so much of my time and my energy. And so now we're going to the beach and we're going on hikes and we're doing so many things. And it's absolutely wonderful. Do I regret my path of becoming a gardener, a food grower, and a food preserver? Absolutely not. It has been one of the richest lessons that I've learned in life. And to be honest with you, it is a life giving skill. And this became very apparent during the pandemic and afterwards when there was so much food insecurity and everyone was scrambling. And, you know, there is just so much wisdom to be learned in this art. And I highly recommend learning this skill. However, once you've been in it for a while and it becomes part of your lifestyle, and, I can keep going with learning. I'm not an expert. I know how to do it, but I know I can learn more. And this is one of those skills that you can just keep going and going with. And I feel like you could become a lifelong learner. And that's something I love. what I'm learning is that we have to make choices in life. And just because we know how to do something and know how to do it well does not mean that you have to do it. And, up until this point, there was a lot of pressure for me to keep going with this, especially because it's part of our lifestyle. And every year, my husband was asking me, when are we canning this? Or this needs to happen. And, there was just so much to do all of the time. And now that I'm taking this year break, I am really learning that I can pick and choose what I want to do. And that is just such a breath of fresh air, because feeling like you have to do something, it's just so daunting sometimes. And so I feel like once I've taken this break and I decide to get back to it, I likely won't be planting my big garden again. I feel like we're growing enough variety on the farm now that I can decide what I want to preserve out of that harvest. And so that's a bit of a change. But aside from that, if I do garden, I really have a lot more experience knowing what my family likes to eat and what has been wasteful to can and what hasn't. Because there are a lot of canning recipes out there, and let me just say they are not all equal, and they're not all to everyone's taste. And over a period of time, I've learned what is worth it. If you are new to the art of preserving food, I will give you a really big tip. What is the most worth it to freeze or can or any of that, dehydrate? What is the most worth it is to replace the foods that you already purchase at the store. That has been one of the biggest learning lessons for me personally. So I make a lot of spaghetti sauce or tomato-based products throughout the winter months. And so it was always so worth it for me to can crushed or canned or diced tomatoes. It was always worth it for me to make salsa. It was always worth it for me to make relish, because anytime that we have hot dogs or hamburgers, it's so nice to have your own relish. And it's also been really worth it for me to have a herb garden and dehydrate my own fresh herbs, because it just tastes so much better and it's more fresh than anything you're buying at the store. And so replacing the things that you already use is definitely the way to go. I experimented with a lot of different varieties and I experimented with a lot of different recipes. And there were a lot of things that my family didn't like and we didn't end up using. And so keep that in mind if you are new to this and that's something that you want to try. However, you might not be interested in growing your own food and you might only want to preserve the odd thing here or there. And I really think that when you're getting started, that might be the way to go. You do want to have things as fresh as possible. You're supposed to can within the first day to 2 or 3 days after something's been harvested, ideally, because it starts deteriorating pretty quickly. But if you take on gardening for the art of preserving, you are setting yourself up for a full season of work ahead of you. And so that's something that you really do need to be aware of, because you are hooked in and you are going to be doing the work. And, it's really worth it when the winter time comes and you have all of this food. But if you've preserved the wrong things and they're things your family doesn't actually like, then you've actually wasted so much time. And if you're like me and you've been already doing this for years, I feel like it would be worth it for you to take a step back and take a year off because, to be honest with you, this has just been such a rich year for me to be able to spend this quality time with my family. And, your kids grow up so quickly and it's such precious time. And once it's gone, it is gone. And those older years, once you're alone and your kids are grown up, you can spend a lot of that time gardening and attending to things. But right now, my kids are at the age where they're grown up, but they still are around on a regular basis. And they're still a really big part of my life. And I really want to hold on to that right now and make the most of it, because before you know it, they're going to be off and married and having their own families. And this time will be gone for good. And so I am very pleased with my decision to not garden and not preserve food this year. And I don't know what the future holds and what I'll do next year. But for this year, it was the right choice for me. And there are so many lessons that I've learned through preserving food and growing the harvest and watching things grow and learning how creation works. And I don't regret a single second of it. I plan on spending the rest of my life doing it. But for now, I really want to spread my wings and fly like a bird and adventure around with my family. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm so glad that you came on this journey with me today of the life of a food preserver. This was not necessarily a tips and techniques kind of video. It's more the life lessons. So thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you in next week's video. Take care and have a wonderful day.